Hello, I'm Juliet Mann, and this is the Agenda podcast, CGTN Europe's one-stop shop for smart, in-depth discussion of the issues that really matter in the world today. President Xi began his European tour in Paris as France and China mark 60 years of diplomatic relations. The talk was mainly about trade, with businesses from both countries signing 18 agreements covering everything from finance to aviation, nuclear energy to green tech. President Xi also encouraged President Macron to work together with China to prevent a new Cold War. So just how do relations between the two countries look now following the visit? Well, joining me now from Paris is former Governor of the Bank of France and former President of the European Central Bank, Jean-Claude Trichet. A pleasure to have you on the agenda again, sir. Now, Macron really seemed to put the personal touch on this visit. Really great emphasis on that, taking President Xi to his favourite holiday destination in the Pyrenees. What do you think that tells us about the relationship between the two men?
Well, I think that it is something which is of the utmost importance for the head of state and government to entertain this kind of personal relationship. After all, the relationship between states and powerful nations everywhere in the world are based upon, as a last resort, the personal understanding and trust of those who are engaging in the discussion and the dialogue. So President Macron's invitation in the Pyrenees is very much echoing, if I may, the nice invitation of President Xi in Guangdong, where Macron was in the last visit he paid to China. Again, I think it's a very good thing, and I personally think that it is, again, essential to have good personal relationship on top of the tough and hard discussion that necessarily you have when you are defending great interests.
I remember in a phone conversation towards the end of last year, President Xi said he wanted more investment from French companies, something he reiterated at the joint press conference on this trip. And Macron has called for fair rules for foreign companies, a levelling of the playing field in China. Are they both getting what they want?
Well, we will see. At least it is clear they are frank and open when they say what they would be aiming at. And it's clear that from both sides, this idea of having a fair competition, a fair trade competition, a fair, I would say, openness to foreign investment, to FDI, is something which I trust is extremely important, not only between, I would say, Europe and China, or France and China, but all over the world. And both countries, it seems to me, are eager to accept that what counts is to be fair and balanced when discussing such issues, trade and FDI.
But there are some sticky areas, aren't there? I mean, I want to talk about electric vehicles, because the EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen was at the trilateral meeting with both presidents in Paris. There are EU probes into electric vehicles, into solar panels, train makers, wind turbines. I mean, what, if anything, might change from China's perspective as a result of this trip?
Well, I think that there has been some kind of, I would say, understanding in Europe that things were going so rapidly, I would say on both sides of Europe, in China and in the US, that very rapidly we might be totally marginalized as regards all the issues and, I would say, industrial areas that you just mentioned, all linked to the green transition. And so that makes the European extremely eager at the level of EU and also at the level of France and all other countries to be sure that Europe will not be marginalized and that Europe will play its role, which is a very important role in terms of I would say, percentage of global GDP and percentage of global trade, also in the green transition as regards, again, all the issues that you mentioned, batteries, electric vehicle, and. that is, it seems to me, something which all partners of Europe have to understand. And of course, it is clear that China did an incredible job in pushing these industries in a very, very determined way, which of course triggers the discussion on what's fair and what would not be fair. The main problem being probably seen from the European standpoint, the question of state subsidies to those industries.
And subsidies that are helping certain industries, although President Xi said in Paris that there was no such thing as a capacity problem in China. But it's that sort of thing that seems to have led to the EU growing tougher on China with the probes into Beijing's industrial policy, while growing closer to the United States. How do you think that this tour might have changed that?
I don't think one should interpret that as being closer to the US and far away from China. I think it's only the recognition that without understanding too well what was happening, China happens to be very, very successful as regards all those new, I would say, industrial product, including EV. And that is something which has triggered some kind of very close examination by the Europeans. I don't think it has anything to do with the US, because vis-à-vis the US, the Europeans would have more or less exactly the same reaction, and they were not happy at all with some of the initiatives taken in the US. So I don't think there is anything which would be anti-Chinese. It is defending the interest of the European industry. That's clear enough. And the openness to China could be illustrated also by the fact that, to my knowledge, France in particular would be open to an investment in EV in France. It was said publicly by the Minister of Finance of France.
President Xi said the world we live in is far from tranquil, and that China and France need to jointly fend off any signs of a new Cold War. What's your take on that?
Well, I understand that clearly Europe does not at all entertain the idea to embark on a new Cold War. That's absolutely clear. Europe has to deal with what Europe considers, rightly in my opinion, of course, that there has been triggering of war in Europe, the first real big war since the Second World War, and that is an immense problem. I understand that there were discussion between the two heads, and that the idea that peace would be of the essence, and some, I would say, declaration of President Xi were quite positive in this respect. Namely, we call for peace, we discuss with both parties, we are doing all what we can, including the idea of not sending weapons on the battlefield. All this seems to me encouraging, and but again, we will see what happens. And it is true, and President Xi saying the world is not tranquil is something that I would say is entirely shared by all Europeans, and certainly by President Macron.
We've talked about trade, we've talked about global stability. What about people-to-people exchanges? President Xi announced that the short-stay visa exemption policy for French travellers to China has been extended to the end of 2025. How do you see that helping relations?
I think it's a very good thing. I mean, again, as I said, personal relationship between heads are absolutely essential, but personal relationship between people are equally absolutely essential. And I am happy anytime we have an openness of the visits by the Chinese in Europe and in France, visits by the French and the European in China. I think it's extremely important, and that a long-term future prosperity and peace relies upon this kind of relationship. So I'm very happy that it was part of the discussion which took place in Paris.
Jean-Claude Trichet, thank you very much.
It was a pleasure, a real pleasure.
From France, President Xi moved on to Belgrade to a rapturous welcome. President Alexander Vučić said that nowhere in the world would he encounter such reverence and love. With me now is Jeremić, former Serbian foreign minister and ex-president of the United Nations General Assembly. How would you characterize the relationship between China and Serbia?
Yeah, I think that there is no doubt that the relations between Serbia and China are at a historic time, at a historic all-time high, if you will. It's been a friendship for decades, going through some very challenging periods. It's a moment in which China and Serbia stood very, very closely together. President Xi's visit coincided with the 25th anniversary of the bombing of the Chinese embassy in Belgrade during NATO's war of aggression against Serbia in 1999. That was a very powerful symbolism and an example of one such moment, one such difficult times when China and Serbia stood together. But that wasn't the only time when this friendship was, forged and tested. During COVID, for instance, it was China that provided the most generous support for Serbia to recover from the effects of the pandemic at a time when hardly anybody else was talking or offering anything of that sort. So through several phases and stages, from strategic partnership to comprehensive strategic partnership of a few years ago, to this very visit, which I'm prepared to call historic, when China and Serbia declare readiness to build community for a common destiny in the future. This friendship has reached a historic all-time high.
The relationship between the two countries is important, as you say. You call it it's an all-time high. But in terms of large-scale investments in things like roads and bridges and other infrastructure, it's been important, hasn't it?
It was exceptionally important for Serbia. China's investment in infrastructure had actually transformative effect on Serbia's transportation and economy in general. And I think it was also very important for China, because if you look at projects that China undertook together with Serbia, we are talking about three historical undertakings. The very first China-built bridge in Europe was built in Serbia. The very first China constructed highway was built in Serbia. That's the highway E763, one of our most important highways in Serbia these days. And the first high-speed rail link in Europe that China projected and was involved, and is still, of course, involved in constructing, is the railway between Belgrade and Budapest. So I think that for both partners, for both Serbia and China, investment and cooperation in infrastructure was crucial, and it very much proved the strategic value of the Belt and Road vision. If there is a place in the world where the Belt and Road idea proved to be enormously fruitful, very much a win-win concept, it was in Serbia.
So when President Vučić said that the sky is the limit when it comes to cooperation with Beijing, where do you think that the real opportunities are?
Well, what's really very important is the fact that we're going to have a free trade as of this year. This was signed and verified in Belgrade. My personal opinion is that technology, in the field of technology, sky is the limit for the whole world and for Serbia-China relationship, especially when it comes to sustainable technologies or generally green technologies. China is the world leader, the number one country in that context. And the partnership that we have, Serbia and China, the partnership of trust, the partnership that has no constraints, that has no opt-outs, if you will, is something that can be truly transformational in the field of technology. Serbia can greatly benefit from working together with China in that field.
We've talked about infrastructure investment. You've mentioned the importance of technology and working together on green technology. But President Xi said that China and Serbia have similar positions on many important international and regional issues. Where do you see those similarities?
I think this is probably the most visible and the clearest of all convergences between Serbia and China, our respective views on challenges in the global arena, especially in our two respective regions. There's a complete support that Serbia has enjoyed by China when it comes to issues related, for instance, to sovereignty and territorial integrity of Serbia. In other words, the problem of Kosovo and all other regional matters. We've been enormously privileged to have the support of a permanent member of the Security Council, that is the People's Republic of China. On the other hand, when it comes to issues related to China's part of the world, to Asia, Serbia strongly supports China in terms of the One China policy. When it comes to Taiwan, it's very clear for Serbia that Taiwan is part of China, that it has always been part of China, it will be part of China, and it is up to China to decide how and when to work with Taiwan and other partners in terms of this issue coming to a close after so many decades of acrimony and divisions. Another important aspect of international attitude that China has been promoting, and Serbia is fully supportive of that, is non-interference in the domestic affairs of sovereign states. China has been exceptionally outspoken in this regard. China does not interfere in the domestic affair of other countries, despite the fact that it is a superpower. And Serbia respects this immensely and supports this aspect of China's policy with great enthusiasm.
Serbia is not a member of the EU, although it has had candidate status since 2012. How might Serbia's closeness to China affect the EU's strategic approach to Serbia?
Well, Serbia is, as you say, a candidate for membership in the European Union. But my opinion is that the enlargement of the European Union has been put on hold, and this is going to stay that way for quite some while. I don't think that there will be new members of the European Union anytime soon, and first and foremost for the internal reasons of political developments, if you will, inside the European Union. So I think that it's rather unpredictable as to when and if Serbia will join the European Union, and it's completely not unpredictable, our relationship with China. Our relationship with China is very predictable, very clear. It's only going to become stronger and go from a strength to a strength. Now, it is a complicated world. We live in a time of geopolitical recession, and we're all acutely aware of that. So China's approach globally that is enshrined in the three global initiatives of China, the Global Development Initiative, the Global Security Initiative, and the Global Civilizational Initiative, is something that Serbia truly respects and supports. And as a matter of fact, during President Xi's visit to Belgrade this week, Serbia formally supported and joined those global initiatives, which I think tells volumes about our relationship for the future in the multipolar world.
Jeremić, thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed.
President Xi's final stop of his European tour was in Budapest. There, he and Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orbán said their two countries had elevated ties to an all-weather, comprehensive strategic partnership. We're to discuss just what that means. Joining me now is Sándor Mészáros, Hungary's former ambassador to China. Thanks for coming on the agenda. Now, this all-weather, comprehensive strategic partnership, what do you take from that? What does it mean?
It means, first of all, I would like to mention that this year, a special year in Hungarian and Chinese relations, we celebrate the anniversary of the 75th anniversary of establishing diplomatic relations between the two countries. And while talking to President Xi, Prime Minister Orbán mentioned that these 75 years have been of continuous friendship. President Xi also talked about the friendship between China and Hungary, and he mentioned that right now, our relations have reached the highest level of their history. So the two sides agreed during the visit and signed a declaration on that they will raise the level of cooperation to the level of strategic partnership. It means, I think, that the all-field cooperation, all-side cooperation between the two countries will continue. The principles, what we have been developing in our relations and pursuing in our relations, will be still on. Principles which are important for both sides. This is mutual respect and benefits, respect for each other, choice for road and development. As a conclusion, I can say that relations will enter into a new phase, into the continuous development and enlargement of the relations.
Well, President Xi also said that the two countries are set to embark on a golden voyage in bilateral relations. And he said that Hungary was the #1 target in the Central Eastern European region for Chinese investment. Where else do you see Chinese investment coming from?
Yes, we are very happy with the development of recent years that Hungary has become the largest, #1 target for Chinese investment in the Central European region. We are very happy with that. We think it's very important. As Prime Minister Orbán said yesterday during the meeting with President Xi, we are grateful for the Chinese investments. We are grateful that China is providing the latest results of technological development, where China is highly developed in some fields, has the most advanced technology. So we are looking forward very much to have more investments. As you mentioned, large global companies as Huawei and BYD are already established in here. By the way, Huawei just signed a new agreement with Hungarian partners about further cooperation and development. During the visit, the two sides signed 18 cooperation agreements, and those are definitely very important. 5 of those agreements will be part of the BRI cooperation. BRI is a very important project. Hungary was the first country from the region to join this program. And the joint projects which are foreseen by these agreements will further the cooperation in this field. There are other projects and other possibilities. So we hope other companies, other great companies will come to Hungary to invest. We have to notice that all the investment from Chinese large, huge global companies in Hungary have a regional aspect. So it helps Hungary to establish its role as a regional hub in the Western and Eastern cooperation.
President Xi praised Prime Minister Viktor Orbán's government for pursuing this independent foreign policy and for defying great power politics. What do you think that says about Hungary's relations with the rest of the European Union?
Well, Hungary is a member of the European Union, participating in every aspect of the cooperation inside the European Union. This cooperation is very important for us. At the same time, Hungary, the present government of Hungary, sees independent decisions and decisions based on national interest in many aspects of international life. During President Xi's visit in Budapest, it was discussed that both sides, China and Hungary, gives a big importance to their relations with the European Union. China sees in the European Union a long-term cooperation partner, whereas Hungary, as member of the European Union, also thinks it is important that the European Union and China's relations could go in a pragmatic way, based on respect, based on mutual respect of each other choices for the road. Hungary sees its possibility in this field as to have to promote this that sort of dialogue between China and the European Union. Hungary is very much interested in promoting this sort of dialogue between the two parties, and we praised very much when President Xi mentioned in the press conference that China supports that Hungary could play an more important role inside the European Union.
Is that then what you think President Xi meant when he said that Hungary and China were developing a new type of international relations?
I think President Xi meant that both sides, and this relates both to China and Hungary, sees as a base for their foreign relations and foreign-related activities, connectivity. Connectivity is the most important password for both China and Hungary. And therefore, I think here it is what was meant that all the activities, all the cooperation should be in the framework of this principle of connectivity. China has been pursuing practically connectivity for a very long time. So I think that was what President Xi meant.
Sándor, Mészáros, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All the best.
Remember, you can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find more agenda content on CGTN Europe's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and YouTube channels. Until next time, goodbye.
The most interesting questions.
Are there other living beings beyond Earth?
Will man or machine be in charge?
Great question.
Always have more than one answer.
Well, hold on, let me just draw up a list.
And always come from more than one person.
That's where the credibility lies.
The concept of having a machinery which is alive and evolving didn't wait for us.
The end of inequality of incomes and wealth around the world, can you imagine how difficult that is at the moment to achieve?
Every episode, Stephen Cole, Murray Beveridge, and some of the brightest minds out there shed light on the answers to some of the most intriguing questions.
There are two ways of looking at this.
Machines can't really discriminate between civilian and military targets.
The Answers Project.
Maybe we need to just look at this in a bit more detail.
Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
The Answers Project, a new podcast from CGTN Europe.